Today, we are going to solve quadratic equations by factoring. Equation, you ask? A quadratic equation is written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are numbers. We will only be solving quadratic equations that are factorable. There are definitely some quadratic equations that are not factorable, and we will solve those later. What is factorable? Well, if a quadratic equation is written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, if it's factorable, we can write it in two groups like these. You don't remember doing that? Here's some examples. So if you weren't sure if you factored it correctly, you could use foiling to check. These are factored correctly. So now that you remember factoring, how does that help you solve these quadratic equations? There's something called the zero property of multiplication. Basically, anything multiplied by 0 equals 0. What we want to do is figure out how to make each of those groups equal 0. Those will give us the two solutions. Here's an example. X squared plus 7x plus 10 equals 0. We can factor this, as you saw in one of the examples. X plus 2 and x plus 5. Well, all we need to do is figure out what makes x plus 2 equals 0, and we'll have a solution, because 0 times anything equals 0. And if we solve x plus 5 equals 0, we'll have another solution that will give us an answer to this equation. So x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 5. These are both solutions for this quadratic equation. Take a look at this for a second before we move on. Okay, now here is one for you to try. You'll need to factor it. Okay, so hopefully you factored it correctly. You should have x minus 4 and then x plus 5. So now I just need to figure out what makes x plus 4, x minus 4 equals 0, and what makes x plus 5 equals 0. The solutions are 4 and negative 5. Hopefully you did this correctly. Here are some tips. You will have a worksheet to complete, of course. First, remember, solving quadratic equations by factoring only works if the quadratic equation is factorable. I am not going to give you any problems that are not factorable. Some of them are easy, some of them may be more difficult. Second, the quadratic equation must be set equal to 0. Some equations may not be set equal to 0, and you'll just have to figure out what you need to do. Here's an example. X squared plus 5x equals negative 4. That does not equal 0. So what do I need to do? Well, if I add 4 to both sides, then I would end up with this. X squared plus 5x plus 4 equals 0. It's that simple. Now it is equal to 0, and I can solve. This is the factored form, and that means the solutions would be negative 4 and 1. Oh, that should be negative 1. Always typos. Hopefully this helps you. Feel free to take a look back at this as often as you need to make sure you know how to factor by grouping. Solve by factoring. You know what I'm saying. Your assignment is to complete a worksheet called Solve Quadratic Equations by Factoring. It is in your email and also in the Google Classroom. Good luck and talk to you soon.